Good evening and a warm welcome to everyone here from Talking Films Online, TFO for short. TFO was founded almost on a whim by Professor Nikhila and myself in June 2020 during the lockdown. Since then, TFO has had uninterrupted discussions on films from all over the world every Saturday at 9 p.m. on Zoom. It is a group of film scholars, researchers, students, teachers, and anyone passionate about cinema. It has been our practice to invite people to select and lead the discussion of the chosen film, which we watch in our own time and place. We have also held film festivals such as the East European, Iranian, Women's Cinema, and others. We have also held retrospectives of Kelly Reichardt and Adur Gopalakrishnan. In the month of June each year, to celebrate our anniversary, we hold a smartphone short film making contest for students and also organize a lecture series in collaboration with colleges and university departments. This evening, to discuss this lovely film, Ammonite, we have Nadi Palshikar with us. Nadi, an MBBS doctor, took a break from medical work in 2004-2005 to study screenplay writing at FTII Pune, and then another in 2014-2016 for MA in Gender, Culture and Development at Kranti Jyoti Savitribai Phule Women's Studies Center, Pune. Her novel Suttak received warm appreciation for its work on gender and family. She likes to write short stories. She regularly reviews films for Voice of the Working Woman. Welcome to you, Nadi, and over to you.
Good evening, Geeta and Nikhila. Thank you so much. I've really discovered a great group, and I hope to join many more sessions and enjoy discussing films with all of you. So here we are today. Just in the beginning, Geeta, there's Geeta and Rasha. Whenever you want me to finish in about half an hour, you just have to remind me.
Yes.
Remind me.
Please take your time.
5 minutes.
No, that's okay.
Yes.
Okay, there's no strict time limit. Take your time.
But I want everyone to, hear, and I want to see all of you.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah. Sure.
So, leading a discussion about film can happen in many ways. I'm like all of you have had so many film scholars, for example, coming and discussing a film. Film scholars who might know a lot about the language of cinema, and a lot of knowledge about the semiotics and the art of the cinema. Okay, then you have had filmmakers who then tell you the other side of the story, so to speak. All the like what happened while making it, what did they want to say, and what came on film, and all that. Okay, so I would just like to take a minute to tell you what film and the discussion means to me. Okay, for me, it started as an extension of a research methodology. Okay, as I was working in an NGO in the rural areas with DAIs. DAIs are midwives in the rural areas. So we were doing these oral histories, talking to the DAIs and getting their histories. And they were a varied group, and I didn't know how to start discussing with them. So if all of you know, there's a film called Hari Bhari, which is made by Shyam Benegal sir, and we all watched it together. And then the women started talking, so it was an extension of a kind of group discussion for me. So because being from varied backgrounds, we have this story, and then we start talking about that. Also, it is an extension of pedagogical practice in a very varied classroom. because at the Women's Study Center, we have women, students coming from all walks of life, from different socioeconomic strata and marginalized communities, different languages. They have varied proficiency in English, in Marathi, different kinds of Marathi, and very interesting combinations. So how can I say? I mean, I would be just pretending if I say that I have this in common with them. Sometimes it is almost nothing in common. Okay, we have nothing in common. So what can we do? Then we watch a film together. Okay, so when we have experienced that film together and then talk about it, it gives us a common ground. And then to again add to the feminist methodology, where we allow a lot of subjective research, I add one more question: what if? What if, which we learn in screenplay? What if this happens? What if actually this had happened? What if she did this instead of that? And get everybody talking. Okay, so for me, a film discussion is that. Okay, so I hope today also it will be, to that, in that very honest note of very what we call ordinary audience coming out of the theater, people who have paid money to go and watch the film, and before we jargonize it out of any kind of the fun and the love of film, before that, just tell us tell each other what we felt about the film. And I hope to hear from all of you at that level. I mean, here we are not the students. I don't have slides and stuff like that, because this is not a class, and all of us are equals, and all of us love the movie. So let's not be shy of saying that I love this, and even not going to, because there's always the temptation about I'm a feminist, and to get stuck in that representational kind of mode. This is a women's film, so have women been portrayed adequately, first of all, and how have they been portrayed, whether all kinds of women have been represented? All this is important, but as Annette Kunze said in her book, that there are many battles that we have already won. In fact, now people are very conscious of this adequate representation, adequate conversations between two women to pass a certain test, and to include all that in screenplay, very politically correct. Okay, so we can let it go. Let them relax, so that they also stop doing this on purpose, even when the story does not lend itself to it. Just putting it in, like how we had women and development, women and gender, add and stir kind of. So the same thing is happening in screenplay, that you just add this gender equality kind of thing. Okay, so let's not do that, and let's just say what we loved about the film, all of you, in each one of you. Now, why did I get drawn to this film? If for me it is an extension of research methodology and pedagogy, why did I get attracted to this film? After COVID, there were many articles about how women scientists coped with the changing conditions. Like they could not go to the lab, and many things had changed, and there was a lot of pressures, and they were cooped up at home. And how did they cope? Okay, so I read many papers about that. In each and every paper, the main thing, all of you have heard, what was the problem? Child care. That there is no child care. The children are cooped up at home and they were irritating them. And then I thought that again we are doing what Judith Butler told us not to do decades ago, essentializing the woman, saying that a woman scientist is somebody who is married and who has children, and who has all the child-related problems. And other parameter that we used about to measure her so-called suffering in the COVID was how much household does the husband do, how much did he do before, and how much is he doing now, and is he sharing equally, and all of that. Again, a married woman with a partner. So I was kind of looking for a woman scientist, and here I found her. Okay, she is centuries ago. So she's not immediate. If I have to study a real woman scientist, I have to, either she will be very famous and inaccessible, or she will be accessible but vulnerable. And I will be obtrusive. So actually, we all know as film lovers that we can study only a film character very closely and non-guiltily, so to speak. Okay, so I got this film. Why is it that why this film? Although this is not a woman director, but it is a very I can see my friend Sahil here, and it's a very how a man's story is, a hero's journey. Like he sets out, and then he fights, and he conquers, and he returns triumphant. Okay, that is how a hero's journey is. And a woman's story is like, it doesn't have this structure, going straight up. It's like a batwa, potli, a chinna purse, means a small little purse full of little things, full of lot of everyday activities, full of very deep, complex, and sometimes unspoken relations, full of ordinary things. Okay, and this film, throughout the film, we see that it is made of such quiet moments. Okay, there is nothing dramatic. There is nothing dramatic in it, and yet it's very deep. It's very complex. Okay, so again, also we are not going to go into trivia that they shot during the COVID epidemic, and then how Kate Winslet came to it, and dropping all these names. And because nowadays all the trivia is available. So why this film? Okay, and how the film starts? Huh? So the first scene, the film opens with her hiding from someone. Okay, or she's hiding from someone, and yet she's looking at them, at two women and a man having a conversation. These people we will know them later as the doctor and Elizabeth Philpott and another woman. Okay, so she is looking at them, and yet she's hiding. Okay, that means definitely, why would we hide if we still did not care about that person? Okay, it's a very ironic thing that we hide from those whom we want to look at. Okay, so it starts like that. She wants to look at them, but she doesn't want them to see her looking at them. Okay, so it is that there is a desire, and there is a desire for an unfulfilled desire. It starts like that. What Laka said, that she likes caviar, but she does not want caviar. That's a rather ridiculous way to put something so serious, but it is like that. That sometimes you just desire for an unfulfilled desire. You don't want to touch somebody, or don't want to be with somebody, but want to have that feeling of wanting to be with somebody. So that's how it starts, and we know that there is a repression, there is a loneliness, and so there's this woman. We are introduced to her right away. We don't know her name, we don't know who she is, and like all good screenplays, we will find out later. Okay, so and then there is this other woman, again immediately the other important woman in her life. And again, because we were talking of Laka, about, even his mirror thing, when a child looks at the mirror, and who confirms that for us, who confirms that, this is me in the mirror, the presence of the mother. The mother confirms for us who we are, that is who we are. Similarly, it will start with the mother is saying that, don't you have to go out, the next day morning, don't you have to go out to do all that trivial stuff? And she speaks about it in a very trivializing and almost saying derogatory things about what she does, tourist stuff. The exact same words will be used by Mary later on, quoting her mother, that this is what my mother thinks of me, and this is what I do. Okay, so that is the beginning. We see these two women already. Charlotte has not yet entered. Okay, for those of us who are interested, because I'm going to take the liberty of allowing myself to, because I love screenplays, allowing myself to look at the story there. But this is what we do. I hope you can see this. Can you see this? This is what we do in Sahil is here. So those of us who love screenplays, we actually, while watching the film, write down a beat sheet. You know what it is like. The first, she looks outside the window, or the mother says this and this, and we write out the whole the film. So for those of you who like to write screenplays probably, or who would like to, so I'm going to describe the film in that language. That first we see her, her everyday world, that she's a scientist, she's isolated from the world, and she's going out into the cold alone. There is this feeling of cold. There's this only this candle to warm her. Okay, we see her going out to work, and this self-inflicted work injuries. Self-inflicted, but unintentionally self-inflicted, which is again a complication. This is a life that she has chosen, but it's causing her more hurt than what she would have wanted. So always the emphasis on her hands. Okay, as we will later also see, and even an expression of love is when the hands are touched, when the hands are looked at, the black hands, the trouble that her work life gives her, that her work of her choice gives her. Okay, so first we see the world, then we see the uh, inadequacy inadequacy in her life of food. There is not enough food. There is that scene with the mother, the broken the egg, not enough food, not enough warmth. And that is how her life is. We see that this is the world she inhabits. Okay, and what happens in the screenplay? What we would call the inciting incident? What happens to start off the story? Is this very patriarchal? But he's just normal for his times. Uh, Smug and yet very earnest kind of scientist from London, has heard of Mary Ellen, and he says that, oh, it's such an honor to meet you, and he's gushing about her and all that, and she says, oh, in the boys network, she knows what it is. She's all the big scientists staying there in London, and she's isolated here. And then that her exhibit there is also mentioned when he says that that we have heard about you and all that. And then the introduction of Charlotte, who is very much unlike Mary. Okay, he says that in those days they used to describe any disorder of women as melancholia, or in worst cases hysteria, connected to the uterus, connected a mental state, a mental depression connected to the reproductive system. In this case, it is true, because she later will find out she's lost a baby and all that. So he spends some time with Mary, goes with her for that walk, and thinks it would be good for Charlotte to spend some time with Mary. Okay, probably we get an idea that he wants to get rid of her and wants to go on the rest of the journey alone. And also he feels that he says, I want my delightful wife back, my funny and very bright wife back. And he feels that he should be with this, this woman who's a scientist and who's independent and all that. So all that happens, and he leaves her here. So that is how we start off the story. Initially, it is that there is a resistance. She does not want to do all this hard work and all, and they are not getting along, because you see that she's refusing the food, and then that trying to bathe in that contraption, which is also of great historical value. The way women used to go to bathe and all that. And then what happens is she comes on the next day again, and she collapses. She has fallen ill. So this is what we would, Sahil, call the plot point 1, perhaps, where something has happened, something unexpected. We thought that this girl would stay here and be an apprentice and learn something about her work and go back to her hotel. But she has fallen ill, requires care, and then the whole middle portion of the film, what we would call the second act, starts, where Mary starts caring for her. Again, just as in the scene where he made the deal about leaving Charlotte, actually this is also done then, because the mother mother is the one who is always conscious about being compensated for it financially, for this looking after this woman. So that part is also there. And Mary starts looking after this girl. Okay. During that process, we will meet Elizabeth Philpott, who makes that salve. And she treats, then we know, oh, this was the lady that Mary was looking at. And then we know that there was an old relationship. Even in that, again, the repressed desire. She says, no, I don't want to come inside. And yet that older woman has this, that I like your hair long. And, she touches her hair. So it's like that with our Mary, that she is a very warm and loving and very passionate person, and yet she wants to keep it repressed for reasons of her own. That's the way she is. So she uses that salve, makes her all right. The relationship goes through the usual, all the ups and downs of a romantic relationship, including jealousy. When they go to that musical program and she watches Elizabeth talking with her, and she just leaves the place. She doesn't know why she's jealous of it, and all that. And she comes home. Then again, this woman, Charlotte, reading the poem, looking at her hands. Again, we know that there are two levels at the way, the way the relationship is progressing. One is they are changing equation at the workplace, so to speak, if the beach can be called that. And if the lab where she clears that, where she uses a chisel and carves out that ammonite, can be called that. They're changing equation. They're learning from each other. Charlotte is learning from Mary, and then Mary allowing her to help her and doing different kinds of work. And then there are expressions of love. Also, this looking at the hand and all that. And even the beautiful personal love scenes also, which were choreographed by the actors themselves, and they're truly beautiful. And a very nice writing there. The first time when she says, you've been sleeping in that chair for too long and I have taken your bed. Just see how the consent is taken. See a very nice piece of dialogue here, where the consent from each other, from two consensual partners is taken. The answer to a consent seeking question would be yes, but here it is no. It is no. In fact, I have taken your bed away for too long. So Mary says, do you want to go back to the hotel? No is the answer. Do you want me to? No. So both of them say no, but actually they're saying yes to the sharing of the bed. And then a very warm and very beautiful relationship that is shown, the physical aspects of it. And then that lovely thing on the beach also, when she's swimming and now fearlessly going to the water, really opening up in every way. Yeah. And then again, the lowest point is when the letter comes. Okay, that would be, Sahil and I would call it plug point 2 from the FTI class, where now things are, is someone saying something to me? Okay. So when things become really bad, she has to go back. And then the mother also dies. And so that's things are real low for Mary. And then a letter comes back again from Charlotte, inviting her. And then she says that, this is what she thinks is a pretty hat, and she's very nicely dressed. What she thinks is important, because when she reaches Charlotte's house, we realize that she's not. Is someone saying something to me?
I think, please, you're requested to mute yourselves.
That's fine. I'm not disturbed, but okay. Okay. If someone wants to say something, just put on your videos. I'll see you. So she goes to London, and in what she thinks is, London fashion, the new hat and all that. We have no way, since it's a period film, we have no way to know whether she's really dressed in the fashion. But when we go there, the maid in the staff in Charlotte's house says that the entrance for the tradespeople is on the side. So we know that she's not really this working class, intelligent and very scientific minded, but working class woman, has not really dressed, like the fashion of London. And but she has tried. So that is very sweet. And she is welcomed very warmly. She shows her the room. And I just had a still of this last scene, but it's okay. You remember the last scene. So anyway, but first we'll stay with the room and see the offers of another life. It's not just that, every accusation that Mary is making. So did you think that you could just fit me into your life? Did you think that you could just include me without asking? But it is in fact not like that. It is like two people being in love. We understand that one person is flinging accusations at the other, and this Charlotte's behavior is in fact exactly the opposite. She has thought of everything. The most touching thing is also that I am accepting your mother also, although this is happening after the mother is dead. That here you could keep your mother's figurines. We know that those figurines stand for child, and this you could write your journal here. And even the dresses she has chosen, it is very interesting, the director's choice of the dress which she shows. See this, I had it made it specially for you. Yes, Mary is wearing the same color. She knows, Charlotte knows what color she likes, that maroon color she likes, but the material is obviously silk, and what Mary is presently wearing is a coarse cotton. But she knew her color. She knew what she would like. She knows and loves her body. She had the dresses made for her, and all that. It's an offering of love. Okay, and but we don't know what will happen. And but she has come here. Do you remember that scene again when she's walking at Lyme to catch that boat which will take her to London? It reminded me of another, which is a totally unrelated film, which is closer to us, Bandini, where because the ship's horn is calling her, and the ship is about to leave, and she has to rush towards it. We are always slightly late for transport towards things that we are not entirely sure of, when there's going to be some ambiguity, when there is, just as the ship leaves, when the last horn is being called, and she goes that. Okay, but forget that. So here, back to this room, Charlotte's offer of a life where she could concentrate on her science. And then she's very angry. Why are you taking me for granted? And what about my life? And I would feel like a trapped bird, and you have duped me into this, and I thought I was coming for a visit. And she leaves, because that is Mary. We heard also Elizabeth telling her, remember when they had the conversation, that have you heard from your friend? And she said that you never really tried, or I could never meet your expectations, because she's she is a very intelligent woman from the working class. And we know, when we are in that position, that all we have is our self-respect and our independence and our dignity. And so we hold on to it sometimes, mm, you know, rather too tightly, even when we can let go a little when we are in the presence of a very loved one. But you find yourself being more careful that no, I will not be granted things. I will not be taken for granted, and I will not be granted favors. So both those things. So Mary is very, particular about that. Then we see her going to the institute and to the museum, and you see her going through all the portraits of the great men. And there is this one shot where her face is superimposed on a portrait frame, where you see her framed as a portrait for a moment in the gallery of the greats, that she could be there. She's standing, so she could be there. So we know that, in a better world, in a less patriarchal world, she would be one of the great scientists. She leaves that gallery, then goes towards that, and she is looking at her exhibit, which she had found when she was 11 years old, and she had called it a flying lizard. And then they had given its correct name, Echithurus, and they had erased her name from the specimen. And remember the first scene. Now when I've come to the last scene, just because we are again in the museum, remember the first scene where some men are carrying an exhibit. Be careful with it. And who is scrubbing the floor? The floor of a scientific place or a museum. There's a woman, and just remember her expression when she is startled and she jumps aside as they are going. She just comes. She's scrubbing the floor and she stands aside, and her whole body language is that I'm not in this mainstream of science. I'm not in the the goings on and the important things. And she stands like this, and then they get that and they remove her name and they put the other name. Okay, so here we are again now in this place, which is the British Museum. From the first scene to the last scene, we are again here. And what I remember was the cleaning woman and the unfairness of it all, that there are no women scientists in those portraits. And we have this scientist here, and she's standing and looking at the specimen, and Charlotte comes. Charlotte is standing, and Kate Winslet, the amazing actor that she is, we see a slight change in her expression. We don't know what it is. Is it a smile, or is she going to accept that offering of a life where she will be able to do scientific work, where she will not, as she's growing older, where she will not have to walk the cold shore, finding that, making those things for tourists to supplement her science. Will she accept that? Again, seeing Sarsha, do you remember another film called Atonement, where she was a child actor? Remember the tuck, 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 that soundtrack where she's typing? And she describes this whole life for her sister and that boy, and then says that what happened in reality was that they, during the bombing, they'd all hid in an underground station and the water flooded it and they died. But in fiction, I gave them a chance at happiness. Remember Atonement? All of us, I mean, any of us who have watched it, you remember that scene. So it just struck me because of the actress here. In a similar fashion, here also the director offers this chance, at least in fiction, this offer of a life. In the real life of Mary Anning, of course, this woman, Charlotte, was an older woman. They did meet, but there was no offer of life, or there's no chance given that she could go to London and live. And of course, in real life, you must have seen this picture that I have here. This is a photograph of her, of Mary Anning, and in reality, she died at the age of 40 of breast cancer. Repressed, lesbian, single woman, unrecognized scientist, and she died at 40. So the fiction offers her a chance. Okay, so that was the film. At that level of discussion, as I told you, a crowd of good audience, people who go and pay a ticket, they come out and they say in the present continuous. और फिर पता है क्या होता है? Then ಮತ್ತೆ ಗೊತ್ತುಂಟಾ ಏನಾಗ್ತದೆ, means what happens next. They say that, they just say the story, and and they just say what they liked about it, and that's the way I have said it. I want each one of you to please put on your video and questions. I'm no scholar to answer your questions, but tell me one thing that you liked or something that you noticed which would really enrich me and would really teach me a lot. But please put on your video and tell me. And each one of you, I think we are few enough for all of us to speak. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Nadi, for that, for taking us closely right from the beginning to the end of the film and giving your insights into individual scenes. That was very nicely done. Thank you so much. I just want to tell you, I mean, in fact, it is serendipitous that last Saturday we watched a documentary called Be Natural. And that is based on the life of the first woman filmmaker, Alice Guy Blanchet, and how film historiography completely erased her contributions to cinema. And today we are discussing a film where a similar fate is assigned to another woman. In this case, of course, she is a 19th century paleontologist, and she does not get the recognition due to her. Instead, she lives in penury, and she just has to survive by selling little curios from her little seaside cottage. So I thought, while watching this film, I was just reminded of last Saturday's film as well. And another thing that I remembered while watching this film was the criticism that Deepa Mehta had to face for her film Fire. And that is, lesbianism is portrayed as some kind of a solution, quote unquote solution for failed sexually unfulfilling heterosexual marriages. And something like that happens here as well. Like, we wonder if Charlotte would have made the first move had she been in a happy marriage. But I mean, without going too much into it, I think it is still a very wonderfully sensitive portrayal of friendship between two women, and the physical intimacy perhaps should be seen as merely incidental. So these are some of the things I thought about the film for a start. If someone else would like to come in at this point.
It's interesting, Geeta, that you say about the marriage, And even in the ambiguous ending, I thought that they would not go into something permanent, because Charlotte with her, oppressive marriage, and Mary with her loneliness would not want something permanent. I felt like that. Yeah, but please put on your video and talk.
Anyone would like to come in? In real life, I was reading that Charlotte was a geologist, and there is some hint of a friendship between Mary and Charlotte, but somehow the film doesn't, show that part of it. In fact, she's shown, at least in the beginning, as a helpless, depressed, melancholic woman, unhappy in marriage, and who's sick and in need of care. And interestingly, it is this, maternal aspect of a woman that is kind of highlighted, because it's the process of caregiving that leads to her falling in love. I thought that was also something interesting.
She wakes up and says that you looked after me like your child.
Yes.
It's very interesting about this geologist that you say, Geeta, because often while we are writing, while people write films, we know that sometimes two characters are combined to make one. And in case it is reverse. The geologist is made into her husband, they're split into two.
Yes.
And the woman is a helpless woman, So it is sometimes for the economy, we will combine the two characters. Yes. Let me see all of your film club people. Say something.
Would anyone like to come in with your comments, your impressions of the film? Nikhila, would you like to say something?
Actually, the place is a little noisy. pardon that. I thought if the noise subsides, then I can speak. But anyway, let me try. It was a wonderful, wonderful film. Nadi, thanks so much for asking us to watch this film. Though it seems to have been on Netflix for a while, I don't know how. I had not watched this film at all. Thank you, first of all, for asking us to watch this film. And it was pretty unexpected. Yeah, it was pretty unexpected, in terms of many things. One, of course, this lonely scientist carrying on her scientific pursuits, unrecognized. I'm sure there were lots of people, 17th, 18th, 19th centuries would have had lots of people who were engaged in these scientific pursuits, for whom probably the only recognition, in this case for Mary is that there is an exhibit in London Museum for which she's credited. Otherwise, the bedrock of science, as we can see, for a film like this, there are some, form the face of scientific inventions and discoveries, and more often than not, they are men. But the bedrock of these scientific endeavors are these unnamed, forgotten men and women who actually do the painstaking work of finding, in her case, finding these rock samples, cleaning them up, naming them, classifying them. So in a sense, it's also a wonderful exercise in a scientific process that we were introduced to in the film. After a point, I felt, somewhere that takes a back seat as the relationship between Mary and Charlotte kind of becomes so overpowering. So this scientist and the scientific endeavor, I thought maybe just takes a little bit of a backseat. But again, it's wonderful to see a personal side to her, which is so, in an understated, deadpan, almost deadpan kind of a non-acting mode, you see so many emotions flicked on the face of Mary, and so much gets said with hardly a word spoken. So in that sense, again, I thought the relationship between between Mary and Charlotte is developed very well. Also, this relationship with Elizabeth, I think, the other lady, and also the mother. I mean, we don't know why the mother is taciturn. Is she happy, unhappy with the person, with Charlotte staying with them? Nothing, the film does not bother to elaborate on many aspects. It just lets these things be, which is also very, very nicely done. No backstory, no drama of why something has happened. So, with respect to, for instance, Elizabeth, so it leaves a lot of things unsaid, and therefore we just accept it and carry on. So some of these were very, very interesting, and of course, it's lesbianism on screen, a kind of a sexual relationship between two women, portrayed with such uninhibited candor on screen was very, very much welcome as well. So thanks, Nadi, for asking us to watch the film and for opening out all these issues for discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Nikhila. Anyone else?
Yeah, if I may say something.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, sure, Ruta. Please go ahead.
Yeah, hi. First of all, thanks for this recommendation, Dr. Palshikar. In fact, when it was mentioned that it was on Netflix, it was on my to be watched list anyway. So I took up the chance to watch this film. What really struck me also, apart from what has already been said, was the way the camera was used in this film. I mean, the camera shots are so beautiful. They are a language by themselves. And what would you have to say about that? I was wondering, Dr. Parshikar, if you could comment on that. What would you think about the camera angles and the way the camera moves and the kind of for example, when she has to go to London, there is a whole quite a bit of time spent only on the sail of the
Yes,
ship that she's there. And
yes,
right from the beginning of the film, we are shown her doing things. I mean, there are objects, there are body parts shown, her hands, especially as you've mentioned, her hands. There's a lot of focus of the camera on her hands, a lot of
yes,
focus on areas of the room which we wouldn't think um, anybody would focus on. So, so the camera has a whole language of its own there. So,
yes.
would you like to comment on that?
It brings out the starkness of the landscape of that shore. Yeah, Ruta, you felt that very beautifully. It was shown. It is beautiful and yet it is stark. And she's
Not
commenting it alone.
not so much in the outdoor as much as in the indoor.
Exactly. Yes.
The camera
Yes.
is more. It speaks more through the silences inside in the inner spaces rather than the outdoors. So
Yes.
what
But
kind of
also that, yeah. And it was showing the body of the woman, but with a non-obtrusive gaze.
yeah, no
Yeah.
objectification there definitely,
Objectification. She's
but
changing her
just
mother. Yeah. Yeah.
no, just the parts of the room, a sideboard, a chair, an open window. I mean, that was beautiful. I felt there was so much mystery to what was being shown.
Yeah. And
And
full of everything.
yeah, so you can go back to to that scene and wonder, okay, why is this being shown now? What is it going to lead to? That mystery was there. For me, it was very exciting to see that mysterious way in which the camera was moving around the story and trying to get in from all angles. Yes, the movie had a relationship between these two women. She is a scientist, her own complex nature, her relationship with her mother. All that is there, of course, is there. But the camera is doing something else altogether. That
Yes.
was amazing, amazing.
In all the intimate scenes, even between them. And I would be dropping a name if I told you that once I have had the privilege of meeting Laura Mulvey as a student eager to
Oh,
yeah. So way back in 99. And as someone trying to impress her, I said, like what would happen to the gays if it was a lesbian love story? And this was 99. So I know, and there weren't many of that. Then how would we look at the body? You see how the body is looked at, even in the
yeah,
love scenes, Ruta.
yeah, yeah,
Your
yeah.
objects and all, I appreciate truly. I mean, I love those objects, the way they saw, the way they showed the hearth, the stove, and all that. But even this looking at, there is no male gaze because it's two women loving each other, and the holding of each other in certain ways, and the directing of hands, taking the other woman's hand and directing it, to her body and everything, and the camera moving with the hands, being very much in at home literally, and going to those places, the food, mushrooms, the spoiled egg, the worn out plates, the very poor table, and everything, and there is
No,
no gaze.
and the spoiled egg, it's a classic way of, she pops a half of an egg later on when the relationship with Charlotte is good. She pops half an egg and the whole half egg she pops out in later on. It was so beautiful a
Yes,
touch.
on the
Amazing.
beach. Yeah. Yes.
To connect. I mean, it's like, there's closure everywhere. They've brought in closure somewhere. Except at the last, there's no closure there, or is there an opening, or is there a beginning? That's very ambiguous. It's nicely done. Super. Thank you.
Thank you, Ruta. Nadi, since you mentioned Laura Mulvey, I must say we have with us right now on the group Ajanta Sarkar, whose PhD supervisor was Laura Mulvey. So,
Geeta, you know, yes, I was, I don't, first of all, I've seen this film, Geeta. So I was so delighted when I saw that this is going to be discussed, and I was kind of just holding myself back. Thank you, Dr. Palshikar, for the wonderful discussion. So
Ajanta,
yes, my name's Ajanta, and I did my PhD with Laura. I'm so what shall I say, ecstatic whenever I hear her name, you know, kind of being, and my PhD student who Malavika and Geeta know very well, ma'am just had her comprehensive Viva day before yesterday, where we were talking about women's cinema, right?
yes.
So this, and Lakha, of
You
course,
heard two articles in that book, Movies and Methods, have been underlined so much that now it has a hole there. You know, so we still
ma'am,
return to that. We
I
still
was also,
the gaze.
absolutely, I was also thinking, you know, of, because Laura works a lot on James Campion, the piano,
Yes.
and there's a lot of big comparisons made already. So we would like to hear from you because, you know, I am here every week, but I just wanted to go back to the point that Nikhila made about women in science and the discussion that Geeta was referring to. And this film reminded me of Rachel Carson, Silent Spring, who also similarly had, I'm sure if you know, a very complex sexual life, which was never acknowledged. And also because I teach now in an engineering college myself, I think I don't think, unfortunately, we will ever get permission to screen these films in class, but I can certainly direct my students, you know, because the syllabus is such that, you know, we have to, English is a kind of, or humanities, though we have a humanities and science program, you know. So, but these discussions around gender, sexuality, in the research methodology class, we have sometimes discussed Dana Haraway. But I feel that these discussions, especially in science, and because science is absolutely not gender neutral. Even when we talk of histories of cinema or even the social sciences, sometimes we acknowledge the inadequacy of the archives. But the sciences are seen as the last bastion of this kind of, you know, resistance to anything that has a social connotation. So, of course, male gaze and all of that, I would like to listen from you. But, you know, thank you for choosing the film. And, you know, what a pleasure it's been. And if you would like to say something about, because James Campion was also one of the kind of great precursors to this kind of, and also the wonderful depiction of female sexuality and the point, very important point that Geeta said, mentioned earlier. There is, of course, is is a lesbian sexuality is not just, you know, a repressed marriage. And I was just also wondering, because you're a screenwriter, why do you think the mother, Mary's mother, had to be killed off at the end? Does she serve a purpose? So thank you for a great, fantastic choice.
Yes, it's
Thank you, Ajanta.
interesting that, yeah, that you say about Carson Ajanta. There's another scientist we lost because of his homosexuality, you know, Alan Turing, which had to be repressed. We lost him because of that. So your science students also might be interested in seeing a biopic about his life, which we have. And
Ma'am, you know, the male scientists are always accorded the status of geniuses. So for men, and you know, they have code breaker, etc. So my camera for some reason not turning on. But for first of all, women in science, even you know the space program. I mean, even the Chandrayaan, you know, we know so little about the women. Yes, and women have been invisible figures in mathematics, in physics, everywhere. But and I think recently in the Women's Society, sorry, Association of Women's Studies, there was a book released on the historian Sharada Mani, which happened in Kerala.
yes, I was at that conference, Ajanta, in Kerala.
Yes. So yes, my students went, and women in science is such, you know, they really do not exist at all. So what a fantastic film it has been. Yes.
The Watson and Crick model also, we forget the woman who was, even I forget the name now to quote it. The Watson and Crick DNA model.
Yes.
Yes, over to
Rosalind Franklin.
Rosalind Franklin. Yes. Who is that?
That's Nandini. Hi, Nandini.
Hi, Nandini.
Hi.
Okay.
Are you saying something, Nandini? You're muted, Nandini.
No, I'm not saying anything. I'm listening to
Okay,
the
okay, okay, okay,
I've seen the film, but not recently. So
okay. Anyone else would like to come in? I thought the metaphor of this whole process of, getting the rocks and scratching them and all that, it worked wonderfully at the metaphoric level as well. Because initially, Mary is portrayed as this, tough and very reticent woman who is just doing her daily quotidian tasks. And then slowly, she kind of blooms in the presence of Charlotte, and you see her smiling and laughing in the ocean, and so it's like as if, her surface also is being scratched, just like the way she does on the rocks to, reveal her inner sensitivity and desire as well. You're muted, Nadi.
True, Geeta. And even that animal, Ammonite is an animal which is trapped, which is unseen, the rock, till somebody chisels it. Chisels
Yes.
rock and says, yes, of course. True.
Anyone else would like to come in? Samvartha, would you like to say something? Yeah, please go ahead, Samvartha.
No, I mean, the matter is, hi, Nadi. I mean, Nadi, I came for you, for the affection that I have for you. I mean, because of my own commitments, I was not able to watch the film. So I cannot actually kind of respond to anything. But I mean, it's always nice to see Nadi and, yeah, I mean, listen to what others have to say. So, I mean, I'm here. So I don't have any response. I'm really sorry about that. It doesn't mean any disrespect to, I mean, either TFO or Nadi or cinema as
And
such.
watch it, you'll like the film.
Okay, yeah, thanks.
Tarkeshwar, would you like to say something? Faniraj? Tonima?
Geeta, just to keep the discussion going.
Yeah, please go ahead.
So I was, I also agree with that point about the camera techniques. So I thought, and as Gupta was saying, the use of close-up. I think what the film is doing is, at several points I caught myself trying to ask, so what is this close-up? What is it? What does it mean? And it's not like the film is building any great significance into the objects that are presented to us in close-up. In fact, that is one of the defining aspects for me of this film, that it does not want to give you very much of any. For instance, the figurines that the mother has. I mean, we can kind of piece together what their significance is, but then it's not as if we really fully understand, why the mother is so attached to them and why she kind of gets irritated when Mrs. Murchison, that is Charlotte, tries to clean them and all that. So the close-ups, the camera technique, of course, it is something that is used extensively during, the intimate scenes between Mary and Charlotte, but it's also used in a number of other instances in the interiors as well. So I thought that was, and so to such an extent that sometimes we don't even see what the objects are, because they are held so close to the camera that they almost, we can only get a blurred effect. We don't really make much of them. So it seems like a repetitive kind of a technique that the film uses to some end, though I can't really specify what end it seems to serve in a number of instances in the film.
The figurines, Nikhila, are of course they represent the babies, as Mary tells Charlotte that my mother has lost 6 babies before. 6 babies, she has seen them going. So the old lady is she's of course very affected by those deaths, and those babies. Today I did the babies by myself, she says. So she cleans them, and so they represent that. But yes, what you're saying about the objects, true. With the kitchen and just the poverty and the loneliness of it.
Yes, Tarkeshwar, please go ahead.
It is not only what the camera is showing, but also what it is not showing. In fact, the communications that the characters get, the letters are shown, but not what is there in it. Generally, I was trying to peep in, but I couldn't get what is written, because the camera is not bothered about it. Neither this plot, the way it unfolds, it doesn't say anything about what was there in the letter. So we have to assume depending on what happens later on. But there's nothing at that moment which tells us that what is this communication is about, or what is the impact of this communication. So in that sense, camera is shy of explaining and narrating and trying to be intimate with the readers. It lets things to be. You make whatever sense you want it of it. That's the way it comes out. So in that sense, the mystery that both the earlier speakers spoke about is still there in the plot. So though it's a normal plot of one not giving recognition to the women scientist, and then the second one is about the friendship between the two and the ups and downs in that friendship. But it works on the audience to go through the plot instead of explaining everything to it. So in that sense, the plot is well constructed, and the camera plays a very good role in this aspect. Thank you for the film.
Thank you, Tarkeshwar. Anyone else? We had watched another very lovely film, Nadi, called A Portrait of a Lady on Fire. That is Celine Sciamma's film. And that is also about same-sex love, and the movie is almost like a manifesto of the female gaze. So that movie could be seen as a companion film with this one.
Can I say something?
Yes, Nandini, please go ahead.
Actually, I saw the film when it was first on Netflix. So I haven't seen it recently, but it's thanks, Nadi, because there was I think this is the way this film should get discussed, the way you did it. But what actually also struck me was how you began with COVID and, the situation of women scientists, etc. But actually, one of the things that really strikes one is the loneliness of the woman scientist at that time. And I think that that's something that really, I mean, of course, she brings it out also. I mean, it is, after all, Kate Winslet, and it's brilliantly brought out. And I think that that whole sort of it's so understated. There was another film which is also about a geologist, which also came out, I think maybe a little after this, if I'm not mistaken. I forget what it's called, but I think it's got Kate Mulligan and Carrie Mulligan and Ralph Fiennes in it. I don't know if you've seen it, but it's also
called
about
The Dig. It was The Dig, I believe.
the dig.
Dig.
Yes, right. So
Yeah, that is another brilliant movie. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. But I think in Ammonite, at least I didn't get a sense as much of that, the kind of despair that she feels in the dig. Instead, there is that tremendous loneliness in carrying out your and I think that really comes out. And of course, the color palette in Ammonite is just brilliant. I mean, these things have stayed with me from the film. I can't recall too many other details, but the color and the barrenness of the site, I think all that kind of adds to that sense of what women scientists have actually had to battle with, in doing science. So yeah, thank you. Yeah.
Being isolated and unrecognized and just keeping at it. And that thing, the barrenness that you speak of, and and what Ruta said about the scenes in London, as if
Yeah.
this darkness, and then suddenly those London images, which are a sharp contrast of worlds. Yes.
The exploitation in the field of science is not something new. The relationship between the field worker and then somebody who publishes out of it, or the lab assistant and the quote unquote scientist. And if you're working with, let's say, in the field, somebody native informant and then the scientist, this is a common problem in scientific research. I think that is also there in this, but the gender aspect to it is complicates it further. And then it doesn't stop at that, this story, but the unfolding of the relationship between the two women makes it quite interesting. And becomes more interesting because it becomes open-ended. We didn't know what the letter was, but she leaves to the land. And then she goes there. We think it's going to be a happy meeting, but it ends up with something else. Then she leaves the house and goes to the museum. And with that, that's the end of it. Something will happen in the museum. Then suddenly this woman comes there and they start seeing each other. And we don't know what happens next. That's the beauty of this story, the way it is unfolds in the narrative. Thank you for suggesting to watch this.
Thank you for your insight.
Thank you, Tarkeshwar. Any other? Yes, Ajanta?
Just, something else came to my mind. A few days ago, I also attended this lecture by Professor Ruth Vanita, and she was very categorical, and she was talking about Oscar Wilde, right? And she was very categorical that this new idea of sexuality, and we know, of course, that from Foucault already, was very India in the 18th century, she says, was so much, same sex, etc., was so much what shall I say? It was not only permitted, it was something even of a norm. So this new idea of sexuality and the new idea of science kind of, come hand in hand. And I was just wondering, because Dr. Palshikar is also a medical doctor, and this is kind of maybe going off the topic a bit, but just to keep the conversation going, does she, and she's able to bring insights from, like Foucault, medical science and social sciences together. how does she, or does she have any thoughts on this? Because according to Ruth Vanita, we were a much more permissive society. This new kind of rigid demarcation of what appropriate sexuality is of course very much a Victorian construct, which is also when the new science comes about. So a woman's position is complicated by many factors, no? I don't know. Does it question make sense?
Yes, and what Ruth Vanita ma'am is saying is very true, Ajanta, that there is evidence of we being a very more kind of fluid spectrum of sexuality in previous times. And then with the patriarchy that comes this compartmentalization and labeling, and making it into some kind of aberration, and all that is coming later on. It's very interesting, this connection you make between science and the sexuality labeling. Okay, because the actually assigning of gender itself is what science does, no? By the sex, by the sexual organs, it is science which labels people, even man and woman. That's whole another discussion, but it's very interesting what you bring about, that the science and sexuality and treating it as an aberration come together, because it is in the interest of the society to keep a heteronormative society running, and it helps patriarchy go on.
Sure, absolutely, ma'am. I was also thinking in Foucault's trajectory, right? Care of the self, he goes right back to ancient Greece. So though he's working in this history of sexuality, sorry, this is kind of maybe veering off the film, but the film brought so many topics kind of, to my mind. So, on the one hand, he has a very romantic idea of sexuality when he poses the Kama Sutra as opposed to Victorian sexuality. On the other hand, he keeps going further and further back in European history itself, as if to find a counter to the kind of situation that we see Kate Winslet in the film. So, this is really a fantastic film. I think one of my favorites. So, because you chose such a favorite film, I had so many things to say, also because the film poets are already discussed.
Well, I would love to hear you. Yes. Thank you, Ajanta. Thank you.
Can I also add?
Yes, Ruta.
Yes.
Can I also add another question?
Yes, Ruta, please go ahead.
Yeah. So, Nadi, there was now that we're talking about sexuality and the permissiveness actually and then the Victorians come around and repress everything. So I was another scene just struck my mind while this discussion is going on, is that when Mr. Murchison comes with his wife, we don't know Charlotte as yet, and they move around as husband and wife, and he orders a lot of food, and he doesn't allow her to order any food which has a lot of variety, and he asks baked fish for his wife without any sauce.
Yes.
Why is that? And then later on, he turns away from her and in bed. And there, at that moment, I got a feeling that he may not be a heterosexual himself, and that's why he turns away from her. So no, that was just a passing thought.
Yes, but
And
it's very interesting what you say about the food. Because have
yeah.
you recently in the news also about this, ladkiya chop suey khati hai, so they become very sexually aroused.
Yeah. So
Okay.
and we told that we're told that she's in mourning. So I thought, is it because you're in mourning, you're not allowed to have, like, widows were not allowed to in our country to
Yes.
eat any of
Yes.
this food. So
Yeah.
it's very passing thought, of course, but very interesting that there is very little that she can do about ordering her own food, and he orders for very, very absolutely obnoxious, of course. And then he turns away from her and
Yes.
says, it's not the right time to make babies of all the things.
Yeah.
That was
She's
so
lost
can
a
you
baby.
just comment? Yeah, can you just comment on that? Both the food as well as he turning away from her.
Lost a baby, and
Hmm.
she's lost a baby recently, and he is withholding sex is another form of oppression in marriage. Okay, that is there. And the food connection is very important, because even did you mention the Kama Sutra now, or it was Ajanta?
No,
I think.
not me.
Yeah, mentioning the Kama Sutra. The types of women also. The women, suppose a very passionate woman who eats non-veg, who eats tamasic food. Tamasic means the bad food. Yeah, the stimulating food has increased desire. So all that is there even in our culture. That she's making
there in our, No, no,
She's
it's there in our culture, but I want to know whether it's there in the West. And
in the West, yes, of course. Women
Mm.
were white fish for the woman,
Mhm.
red meat,
Yeah.
bloody meat for the man.
Right,
Because the man is
exactly.
strong with carnal
Mhm.
desires and bravery and all of
Yeah.
that. The woman to remain like that, easier to
Yeah.
control. Okay, you are Ruta Dharmadhikari. You know
Yes,
that
yes.
in Maharashtrian widows, ती लाल साडी असायची, लोणचं खायचं नाही, means you should not eat pickles.
नाही
You
नाही
should
बरोबर
not
आहे.
do any-
So आणि
yeah,
काहीच म्हणजे
बारा
स्पायसेस नाही,
वाजता
तिखट नाही. हा, करेक्ट
Yes,
करेक्ट.
yes. So don't use anything which will titillate your senses. Because then you
Right.
advances to me, force me to perform. That is what the problem is.
Mm.
So yeah, the
So when we were
connection
talking
of
about this, yeah, so therefore when we were talking about homosexuality or heterosexuality, the way he turns away from her made me rather think that he doesn't want a heterosexuality. That's a passing thought. May not be true, but later, yeah.
I don't know, that could be interesting, but this withholding of sexual, I mean, happens in heterosexual men also, I guess. Yeah, but it's an interesting angle if he was a latently homosexual person. Yeah. But the food is there. We see what they are eating, that vegetable soup, the spoiled egg, then the mushrooms, then
Yeah. Yeah,
and
yeah. So that metaphor, the food metaphor is, I mean, it runs through the whole, there's a whole thread running through it. And it's very noticeable.
Thank you, Ruta. Any more comments, questions? Okay, in that case, we will bring this session to a close. Thank you very much, Dr. Nadi Palshikar, for this wonderful session, and especially for suggesting a lovely film like Ammonite. And thank you all for joining us, for participating in the discussion. See you next Saturday.
Thank you, everyone.
Good night.
Good night. See you next
Have
week.
a nice
Thank
Sunday.
you, Lord.
Good
Thank you
night.
so much.
Bye. Bye.
Good night. Bye. Thank you. Thank you, Nadi.